Are you giving the Knicks a chance to push this to a game 7, or do you think it wraps up on Saturday night?
I'll do you one better. I think the Knicks are very live to win this series. They're what, plus 280 right now. I know if you parlay two minus 110s, that gets you to plus 62.
Mhm.
I think that means it's good odds because they're what, plus 145 here, depending where you're looking at. I think they're going to be minus 160 at home if they do get this win. So average it out slightly better than an even money bet on both bets. And the Knicks have been better at home. And I think I've got flip-flopped so many times on this series
It's been
that
tough.
it's been tough. The overs have been unders, the unders have been overs. Game one was I wonder how different my handicapping would have been, how much more confident I would have been if it just wasn't for that freak accident that happened at the end, the last 3 minutes of game one, where I thought the Knicks were better. I thought the home crowd, home favorites do great in game one, up 14 with 3 minutes left. So even if let's just call that a tie, because it's I mean we could give it to the Knicks and say, oh, they played better through 47 minutes. If we just call it, but Pacers deserve credit for winning the game and winning in overtime. So if we call that a tie, then the Pacers have two legit wins, the Knicks have two legit wins, and we're going to fit to um figure it out. And I think you called it with the way that the Pacers kind of punted on the game early on. Like the
Yeah.
starters didn't
Yeah.
score very much at all. Aaron Neesmith, who's been the Jalen Brunson stopper, as good as Brunson has been on balance in this series, when Neesmith's in the game, Brunson's shooting like 35% versus like 70% versus anybody else. He's had a little bit of an ankle injury. They held him to
Yeah.
16 minutes in game five. I figured that was mostly about not him aggravating that injury because he played great in game four coming back, but because, they could afford to lose this one. Game six will be the do or die. Um, but I think the Knicks are very viable to pull it out. And the fact that the Pacers punted on the game the way they did, and Pascal Siakam after the game said, they played harder than us, and then got into a tuffle with the
Yeah.
great Greg Doyle. Wow, I mean, so many times throughout the years, his name is in the news. Indy Star must love him for the controversies. I don't know if you guys remember, but 2011, he asked LeBron the shrinkage comment in game two, I think, after a win, or yeah, no, it was after they blew that lead. And that became a story for the next series. Caitlin Clark, there was some kerfuffle. So, I mean, maybe just take his press pass at a certain point. If he's the story every single press conference or at least once a year. But anyway, he did get to a good point. He did journalistically get to a good point. Why did the Knicks play harder? I have a theory. It's because neither of these teams want the game that bad. They don't want to lose to the Thunder in five that bad. They do. They want to make the finals. It'd be a big deal, especially the Knicks. It'd keep their core together. It'd be the biggest moment in a decade. But as far as like life and death, this is the best thing that we will ever do as humans on this planet. I just don't see it between these teams. I see teams, kind of protecting themselves, kind of being a little cagey, even at this point in the series. Um, so then I ask myself, if neither of these teams are do or die desperate, who is more desperate? And I think that's the Knicks. I think they like Tibbs. I think they want that group to stay together. It's going to be hard not to make changes if they get this break, all the Celtics injuries, not very highly pedigreed Pacers team in the conference finals, and they're not able to get it done. Cat's name has been mentioned in trade rumors with Giannis or whatever. So I think the hungrier team is the Knicks here. I still have them as a slightly better team. And the market move doesn't make any sense to me because this was Pacers -2 at home in game two, thereabouts. Moved to 2.5. I think it even moved to 3 in some spots in game four. But that said the Knicks were slightly better team or they were even teams. Now, after a loss, after probably their worst effort of the playoffs, they're better than the Knicks? I don't think so. I don't see it. I think the Knicks, if anything, have kind of gelled a little bit with how to play Brunson and Towns together. So I think the Knicks are slightly better. Market says they're slightly worse. I think that's value on the Knicks.
Yeah. I think that the Knicks, I don't want to say I figured it out, but it's a game of adjustments, right? And
No doubt.
when you talk about some of the great head coaches in the history of the NBA, or especially in particular in the playoffs, those are the type of coaches that make those game to game adjustments. at least in recent form. Ty Lue, Eric Spoelstra, those type of head coaches, come to the top of my mind. Um, and I think maybe Tom Thibodeau's starting to figure that out because as bad as Jalen Brunson has been on the defensive side, like you need his offense for this team to have success, of course, to win games. And Karl Anthony Towns, at least in the last two games, have stepped up in big ways. He had that big fourth quarter in game three. Had a great game five here for the Knicks in Madison Square Garden. Like I mentioned, finishing up with 24 points. Very efficient from the floor, 10 of 20. Had also 13 rebounds there. But I just feel like Josh Hart's not talked about enough. And for what he's been able to do transitioning to the bench and coming off that bench and just being a huge rebounder for this New York Knicks team. And I'm not even looking at the defense side, it's the offensive rebounds that he's been able to get and create those second chance opportunities for the New York Knicks there. So it should be an exciting game six, I should say. I'm on the Knicks side. I'm gonna die on the fallen sword there. I mean, look, there's an opportunity for them to get this back to a game seven on Monday night in Madison Square Garden. And we talk a lot about controversies or what the league wants as far as having a big market in the NBA finals. And maybe that's it's a cop out, but right now there is a +4 sitting on DraftKings on the New York Knicks there. So I'll take the Knicks plus the 4 in game six. I think this will be a very tightly contested game. I think it comes down to the final minutes again here, Mac. So give me the Knicks +4 and possibly winning outright to push us to a game seven, which according to the schedule, I would think, yeah, because it's Saturday, yeah, so it would be Monday then
Yep.
for the New York Knicks. But you got anything else?
Yeah, a couple things. I like a player prop I'll tell you guys about
Yeah,
in a minute that piggybacks off something you just said. But it's crazy to me that it's four. Like, if it was 3.5, and it is 3.5 in some spots, if it's
yeah,
even three, I think that's giving the Pacers a lot of credit. But to make it four and saying the Pacers are clearly the better team at this point, I don't think that the market is saying that. I think what the market is doing, especially a little bit more of a public shop like DraftKings, is people like to bet favorites, A. I do too. Nothing wrong with that. But people like to bet the most recent trend, what people have been talking about. And the playoff bounce back this year is pretty incredible. So 65% ATS, if all you're doing throughout the playoffs, every round, is saying, hey, did this team just lose their last game? I'm going to bet on them. And it's worked out pretty well this series with the Knicks getting a big bounce back win in twice, and the Pacers getting a big bounce back win in game four. However, one year does not make a system something that I want to jump into, dive into. If you look at throughout the playoffs history, as long as we have betting lines, which goes all the way back to the 2002-2003 season, there's been 1,500 times a team has been in the playoffs coming off a playoff loss, 51% ATS, which is not nothing with that big of a sample. Hey, that's better than 50-50, but it's not profitable. It's not something you can bet every game and expect to make a profit on, where you'd have to be 52.38%. So I think that's a little bit of a prisoner of the moment. And if I get into my top 10 players, and Tyrese Halliburton and Anthony Edwards were kind of ridiculously rated in the past week or so, and I'll ask you where you think of my current ratings, because
sure.
it was tough for me to elevate these guys. Uh, if you just look at the entire history, there's not a 1.5 point bump coming off a loss. Maybe it's a quarter point bump. And I think the market's a little ahead of its skis here. I think the Knicks force a game seven. We get more basketball. Everybody's happy. Big part of that, I think, will be Karl Anthony Towns, who's gone over his prop in 4 of 5 games in this series. And if you look at his career, I mentioned this after game one. I wish that's all I would have mentioned and all I would have talked about, because it continued to hit. Karl Anthony Towns loves his matchup versus Miles Turner. He's a really good shooter for a big man, but he's not Steph Curry. He doesn't want to
Yeah.
shoot eight threes a game. He's a 7 footer. He can post up, but he's not Hakeem Olajuwon. He doesn't want to post up people. What he wants to do is face up, use his speed, and drive to the basket. Use the threat of the three, the threat of the three essentially, or to get into his post up, his size essentially to get smaller players off him, so that he can use his speed and go around Pascal Siakam, go around Miles Turner. If you look at his career versus Miles Turner, he's averaging 28 points per game. If you look at his points prop on a game by game basis, he's gone over in 10 out of his last 12 games. There was a little bit of a knee issue maybe, but he looked absolutely fine, as Van Gundy said on the broadcast, especially when he had the ball. That seems to be the healing remedy for a lot of players. I get it. Um, I think that you throw that complete out the window. He's no longer questionable. I would consider him close to 100%. And this number has gone up a point, but he's gone over this number even again in 10 out of his last 12 games. So that's my best bet for this game. Carl Anthony Towns over 22 and a half, even with the total lower, the desperation, the saving of his legacy, the good matchup, all of it points me to Carl Anthony Towns creeping over that prop of 22 and a half. Yep, that's the way I
Yeah,
want to go. And yeah, I'll just leave it there.
I like it. We talk about secondary scores on playoff teams, right? And there's a lot of reliance a lot of times on the superstar player. I mentioned this, I don't know, 1,000 times on the last episode, the Donovan Mitchell effect. But I think Carl Anthony Towns has, so I think something clicked for him. And I think it may have been when Tom Thibodeau benched him. Was it game two or game? Yeah, I believe it was game
Game
two
two. Yep.
in that fourth quarter. And, I think at that, from that point on, it's really clicked for Carl Anthony Towns there. So you mentioned it again. Of course, he's not Steph Curry, but he is a way better than average shooter. Um, for a big man. But also, you took a look in game five where he was 10 of 20 from the floor, but he only got up for, or he only shot 4 3-pointers in that game. He made one. But the fact that he's, gotten 35, 20, 24, 24, 24, 24 points exactly in 3 straight games here,
Yep.
he's going to have to continue doing that, to take some of that pressure off of Jalen Brunson having to be that guy every single night. And not that Jalen Brunson can't do it, but again, if he has an off night, you need another player to step up, and I think that's exactly why they brought in Carl Anthony Towns to be that guy there. Also, throw a prop here at you, Mac. It's going to be on the Knicks side. We'll get your thoughts on this. Josh Hart rebounding prop. It's at 9.5 right now. So expecting him to get double-digit rebounds here. It's plus 105 on the over for him. But I talked about what Josh Hart brings on a daily basis and a nightly basis for this New York Knicks team. It's, diving for those 50-50 balls, making the ugly plays that don't show up in the box score necessarily. But one thing that he does thrive at has been being an excellent rebounder, especially on the offensive side there as well. 3 straight games here, he's had 10 plus rebounds for the New York Knicks. He also had a 13 rebound game. I believe this was in game two of this series here for the New York Knicks there. And we talk about limiting possessions for the Indiana Pacers and trying to limit the offense. That's what you have to do, is hold them to one possession and not give up those offensive rebounds, because they do have guys that can knock down the 3-point shot. I know they haven't shot it very well over the past couple games here at the Indiana Pacers, but I think for Josh Hart embracing the role of coming off of the bench, just being that glue guy, the guy that makes the makes the dirty play, or not the dirty play, I should say, the hustle plays, I think is the right word to use there. Kind of the Draymond Green as when it comes to hustle plays and being that glue guy. I think Josh Hart is that guy for this team. But as great as he has been during the regular season, where he had to score the basketball, but I think that his bread and butter has really been on the defensive side and rebounding the basketball. So right now, DraftKings does have his rebounding prop set at 9.5 at plus 105. Here, Mac, I'll throw in a bonus best bet there for Josh Hart over 9.5 rebounds.
I like it. You look at again, kind of like Cat, who went under one game because he played much less minutes than usual. Josh Hart only played 28 minutes in game two, only had 6 rebounds. Other than that, he's gone over every game. And in the last 2 years, he's played 18 games versus the Pacers. He's had 10 plus rebounds in 14 of them, and 14 of 16 where he's played at least 30 minutes.
Love it.
Desperation. Villanova will be out there representing. I feel like Tibbs is going to have a relatively short rotation, maybe a little less Shamit, a little less Wright in this one. Yeah, I think Hart goes over here. Good pick.
Yeah, I want to see what his double price is as well before we move on here. It's at plus 250 for Josh Hart there. I mean, I mentioned that he's not really going to be a guy that's going to, score a lot of points for you, but at least in the back-to-back games here in this series, in game 4 and game 5, he has posted a 12 and 11 in game 4, and then in game 5, at home. He had 12 points and 10 rebounds there. So if you want to get a little bit more spicy with it, plus 250 on his double double market price there.